Okay, folks, welcome back. And today, if you're just joining us today, we did kind of a rough test yesterday just to see how everything was working. It seemed to be working okay, except I was doing a download at the same time, so some of you mentioned that it was kind of choppy. So we should not have that problem this morning. If you do, let me know how the feed is. Let me know if the feed seems pretty good, almost as good as it was in the other location, etc. So if you're just joining us for the first time, well, welcome. This is what we do. We wake up early in the morning while everybody else is asleep and we get stuff done so that we have a good positive start to the day. So today what we're going to do is we're going to work on these T34s that I've had sitting around for a few months. They had been brought up to the point of the green on them that needed to have weathering and decals, writing, nomenclature stuff on the turrets. I dry brushed these guys yesterday, the T34 76s, and today we're going to work on the T34 85s. One of the problems I have is I use my phone as what I search by all the time for ideas on the internet. There's just a plethora of ideas on there. And right now the phone's being used as a camera. So what normally go is, hey, let me go see where these pictures are. And I took a look at them this morning. I've got some examples I'd like to paint the markings on these two vehicles on, but it's on my phone. So unfortunately I can't get that right now. So I'm going to do a quick search. I remember who the decal company is that I was using, and I am not educated enough to figure out how to do this and have you guys follow along. I am a painter, not a computer person. But I believe the name of the company is, let's see if I can do this. I should be able to do this. Here we go. Cool. Libri. Decals. Now I'm gonna have to stand up. T34, 85. Okay. Let's take a look at what we got here. I know which ones they are. It's just a matter of getting them, and then I can save them on the computer, and they're easier to access for the computer. Well, they're easier to access from the computer if you're doing the painting here. Okay. All right, these are all super late. I was going to try to avoid not doing the ones from the Battle of Berlin, which actually look pretty cool because they've got this white stripe on them, but oh, now they're selling them on Etsy? That's good. Etsy's a pretty good platform for selling individual decals, especially when it's some of these things that come from Europe that are hard to get a hold of. Let's see what we got here. 1945, 1945. Now there's one in particular that was from July 44. Them. This will give everybody a chance to get in here and get your breakfast taken care of, because I certainly don't do anything like this on breakfast. But like I mentioned yesterday, we should have gotten all the bugs out, and now we will, I just found them. Okay, now we will be able to do this on a regular basis. I believe it's this one right here. Operation Bagration, which is, of course, the destruction of Army Group Center. Let me take this, and we're going to save image as, and okay, now I need to make sure I can pull this up on my other screen. Oh, I didn't realize there was going to be that many other things on here. So I hate it when you download a picture and you can't find it because you have so many other pictures downloaded. And of course I didn't name it, so I don't know what the hell it's called. I'm going to go back to that other screen. Oh, here we go, incompetence in action. Let's do, come on, go to this screen again. All right, save as. AVIV file, what the hell is that? We're going to call this T3485. Let's see if it doesn't freak out that there's a slash in there. Yeah, it doesn't like that there's a slash in the name of it. We're just going to T3485. All right, now we'll go into pictures and scroll down to T. Here it is. And it won't open that type of file. Okay, well, the hell with it. I'm going to leave this screen open then, and we won't need to. We won't need to do that. So what we're going to be painting is we're going to be painting a couple of units here that are from the 26th Guards Tank Brigade in Belarus in July 1944. So that's what we're going to be doing, and we're going to be hand painting these, which makes some people freak out, but I actually like that quite a bit. It's one of the things I enjoy doing more than anything else, just like I enjoy painting shields on my medieval figures, heraldry, that kind of stuff. I like hand painting the decals on the markings. You know, if they're appropriately hand painted, you know, it might be something that's not hand painted at all. It needs to be a little bit more well done, I should say. So we're going to get, this is a background. We're not going to use a wet palette because we're going to do a different method for this. The wet palette introduces water into it and ratios I can't. You need more precision than this. So let's get our white. It's just all white writing on these. I'm going to move the T3476s off to the side. These are the bases that will eventually be on. And we're just going to pick one of them. Looks like they both have a tank commander popping out. Which you can do without horrible adverse effects now that the Soviets have a T-34 with a 3-man turret. And we're going to put a drop of the flow aid. And I think that's it. Let's try using this one here. And if you guys do any comments in the next few minutes, I'm probably not going to see them. Because I need to, well, let's see, could I get away with moving this screen? I can. Okay. All right, cool. So I'm going to move the chat screen over here. Excellent. Hey, I'm still new at this. I've been doing this for a couple of years, but my interest is in doing this, not necessarily the software type of stuff. And I'm going to be able to see your chat, but I'm not going to be able to see my screen, which is fine. Okay, so one of these guys is going to be number 300. 300 and 300, and I'm going to make the other one 306. All right, so we're going to take the first one. Let's see. You guys are probably going to want to see this. So let's... I'm going to move the light over here. I'm going to move the setup is a little bit clunkier than the other one. Now, let's see. I should be able to access. There we go. I should be able to access the app here and be able to zoom in on it. Okay. It normally takes a little bit of time to react. And now, can we get this in a way that kind of focus on what we're doing here? Let's see, I'm going to be about here, so we need it to capture. Oh man, it's way over. No. No, I still haven't gotten comfortable with this location. But we'll get it. We got it last time. Yeah, this light, this overhead light that's giving me extra boost for clarity is kind of in the way. Let's see, let's loosen this up. Okay. And then let's scooch this over. It's not really in my way per se. All right, now I think I can come over here, and when I do this on its side, like so. Now this bastard is just in the wrong place. All right, let's try this. Let's try one thing first. What happens if I kill it? Yeah, I need it. You guys actually don't need it that badly. Let's flip it over here. I generally don't like things to the right-hand side of myself. They tend to get in the way. I'm extremely right-handed. Yeah, that's going to work better. All right, let's pull this off. Yeah, I used to have the light that came in through the back of the painting area, but we can't have that way now. Okay. All right, so we have a light source. Now we have freedom of moving this more or less however we want. There we go. Without it being in the way. Why is this crick-crocked at this angle? Okay, that's how we want it. And now, it's like I need this thing to be shorter. All right. Let me make sure this is set to the right thing. The joys of the new setup, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to get into the. Although I spent 3 hours here yesterday, I know you came on yesterday, and this place is pretty comfortable. Other than I do need a fan. I do need a fan to move some air. This house is significantly cooler than the last one, but I am a tropical person that requires airflow. Let's well, maybe we just can't do it from the front from now. All right, so let's take this and go to, let's do a double flip. All right, let's do that. I'm just limited on this thing. It's like too tall for its own good. And let's see, am I able to connect this? Where are the buttons? They're on this side. Yes. Okay, so it's got to be connected that way. Um, yeah, we're getting. No, getting a hell of a shadow that way. Well, the light's got to come from this direction, and I can't do that with this thing. So let's. Damn it, man. Oh, I was trying to use two freaking cameras. Maybe I got to rethink this. All right, let me do something else. Let's yeah, because it's all shadow because I can't get light from this direction. All right, so if I can't get light from this direction, then how about I film from behind me and do it in a way that my head's not in the freaking way. All right, so in order to do that, holy crap, I didn't have enough coffee for this morning. Okay, let's flip this thing back over. What we want to do then is put this in a way. All right, I'm going to disconnect this for a second. Maybe I'm just overcomplicating and we just need to move forward with one camera today. I don't want you guys to have a shitty show though. And you think painting numerals is difficult. No, dealing with this shit is difficult. Painting's easy. Brushes always work every time. Let's see. If I go like this, and I move this up like this, I need to get a video consultant that can do that. We could do a trade. You can show me how to set all this up, and I can show him how to wear deodorant. Oh shit! Let's see. The buttons are here, so we can't attach to that way, or I'm going to end up pressing buttons as I go. So we need to attach this back ass ward. Like this. And the cord can go up this way. Let's tighten this down, and we'll see which way we have to flip this thing. Hey, reach for the sky. Okay. So let's see, we need to. I don't know that I'm smart enough to do this morning. All right, I'm gonna give this another 3 minutes. If not, we'll go back to one camera like we did yesterday, which. Yeah, I can't do it that way. So the other option is to do it. Is to do it I want it like this. So in order to do that, I'm going to need, this is in the wrong place. I can't get it where it needs to go with this camera mount. I can't put it like that. I got to put the camera in a place where it can't get to. All right. Let's try doing this then. Painting's easy. These mental calisthenics are, it's a pain in the ass. All right. That's not too bad, but it's right in my way. All right. Fuck it. Let's think outside the box. Let's think outside the box. I'm going to disconnect this. Take this mount. I even got a new one of these. I did the move in this little ball mount that I normally use. I couldn't find my old one. So I just bought another one. This one works better, a lot better. We're gonna take this mount the hell off. Okay? We'll move it over here. Yeah, the bottom's not attached. Okay. Then why is this thing wobbly? Because this thing's excellent. This is another camera stand that I inherited between the last 3 months, and it's really good. Let's see. Although it seems to be misbehaving at the current time. Let's take this off. And then we'll just mount this on the ground. And I actually don't mind if this is the way forward, because it gives me a way to, it keeps the painting area clearer. Of course, I got rid of all my tools here. All right, let's do this. This should work. All right, cool. That's tight. Rotates pretty easily. All right, so let's make sure this is, give it a couple more turns on here. Yeah, this thing didn't have this shoe, so I went and ordered this shoes. I'm like, I think this stand will work just fine. If not, I've got the old camera stand that we can use. We're going to get through this, by God. only go in that situation? Okay, cool. Well, now you know. All right, so this is. Okay, that fixed that being wobbly. Cool. Let's mount the camera. Shit, I forgot how I have to do it now. It's got to be facing out like that. And I need to have it this way. That's all that keeps it from going down. Okay, and then we can raise this a little. Let's see how it looks like at that setting. Sometimes it'll find it immediately just by plugging it in. Yep. Definitely trying to work out the new studio. We'll get it. I wanted to get that second camera. It needs to be in the right place for you guys. No point in having something there. Okay, now I know it's frozen, so I should be able to go in this app. And where is it in here? There we go. All right, so we need to flip it. Okay, and something with the writing on it. Okay, so it's back asswards. Okay. Okay. And the cord is in the wrong place, but there's nothing I can do about that. I can get the longer cord that's in the bedroom. It's really, really long. Like 12 feet long. Let's plug that in. See if it finds it immediately. Yeah. Of course I have to reset it. All right, I can set that against the front of my lap. It'll be fine. We'll get to put the longer cord in tomorrow. Let's rotate this twice and do a flip. Okay, so let's get rid of this. I don't mind it on the left. Now we just it needs to have more height. Let's keep the base the same size. I don't mind putting this on a tripod instead of on a desk mount. It's just something I couldn't do before. Or I didn't try to do it before. All right. Now, hey, look at it. There's the stands here for the paint, the Vallejo paint thing, which was, I gotta be careful, make sure I don't drink my paint water. And now I should just be able to angle this however I want. All right, so since we're experimenting, let's try something different. Means I'll have to move the light back to the other side. Assholes. guess I'm gonna have to change the name of this session to figuring it the hell out. We'll still be on tomorrow morning. Hopefully with a better clue. I got irons and details out. I got my on the air sign that's in the wrong place. Alright, now. We got this like this. We got this like this. You can come closer. Come closer, big guy. Alright, and then we should be able to do this. And if we zoom in on it. Now, if I'm working on something, it shouldn't be too bad. What if I move it slightly behind me? I move forward. You know the only gripe about this room? It's actually not even the temperature. It's this floor. And it's what they call premium vinyl flooring or whatever. It's basically plastic. But the problem is that it can scratch easy if something that is heavy moves across it. The only thing in here there would be is the chair. So because I have that here, I got to put one of these rubber mats on it. And I wish I didn't have to, but it's either that or destroy my flooring. So small inconvenience. Let's see. Let's move that over. That's probably the best I'm going to be able to do for the time being. Okay. That's probably the best I'm going to be able to do for the time being, because what I need to get is an extension mount that's not as big as that one. So it can just go right here, because this is where it needs to be, shooting from like this location. And I'm not wearing a head cam or buying one of those GoPro things. But that's the other alternative. So hopefully this is sufficient. Let's see if we have something really cool. I guess I could turn it like that. All right. Let's see if we can get down to painting. What I'm better at. Okay. So we have these two T3485s. We don't need the bottom holes. We don't need them right now. All right, and the very first one we're going to do is, so they got writings on both sides and on the rear. Okay, so I'm going to have to make an executive decision, and that is, a lot of these have white stars on the actual tank, and it's just weird to have a Soviet tank with a white star on it, like it's batting for another team. So we're not going to do that. We're going to start off with the back. This one happens to be number 300, and looks like there's a tiny little A behind it. So that's what we're going to end up trying to do. And let me get this back how I had it before, which is this moved over here. Mortimer, we're back. I don't get that reference. Okay, here we go. Oh, I always laugh when I have to say, let me take my glasses off so I can see. Well, what are you wearing glasses for? So I can see farther than 6 inches from my face. That's why. All right, now, if I hold this here, am I able, are you guys going to be able to see what I'm doing? No. All right, so let's move this a little bit more. Okay. All right. So let's make sure this is in the right fluidity. And see if this brush is worthy. So when I'm doing numbers and stuff like that, what I found out is make sure that it's almost like you're trying to write it with pencil. Don't go for the maximum thickness that you need. Make sure everything's balanced where it needs to be. So if we're doing the number 300, it's from the movie Trading Places. Man, I hadn't seen that I've seen it once, and it was probably 1984 when I saw it. I'm terrible about quoting movies too, because I generally don't rewatch movies. So, except when my daughter comes back from school, she'll be home for the holidays. She comes back from school in a couple days. We're gonna pick back up where we left off watching Generation War, and that'll be the third time I've seen that. All right. Oh, can I just minimize this? Yeah, okay. I just can't seem to have the two things up at once. So let me just switch between the screens. 300. All right, so let's put the center zero in the way, and how much meat's below it? Not a whole lot. We're gonna have to put an arrow over this anyway, so here goes. Knowing full well I may have to correct this, and I'm not thrilled with this paintbrush for this. I threw away about half of my paintbrushes. And I wasn't being wasteful. They should have thrown them away a long time ago. Much better. Let's look at that style at 3. Okay. Yeah, the Soviet 3s always have that bottom 3 part that likes to come almost all the way up. Okay. Here's the 300. And then we have an arrow that goes across it with a point that way. There's a decal company, I believe they're from Russia, and they're called Colibri. Or maybe in Russian it said Colibri. But anyways, in Spanish it means hummingbird. It might mean the same thing in Russian for all I know. But how much meat's above it? We're going to need space for like a little H up there. And then there's a small H up here. And there's almost like an A or something off to the side. Let me switch to the other. Let me switch to the other camera now. Let's see. Get it on there. We're going to dress up some of those zeros. For old style quotes. What precipitated your move to a new house? And is it very far from my old one? So no, not at all. So I have lived in the town I used to live on since 1980, and just moved in different places. We're in the last house for 20 years. I have about an 18-minute commute to work. Though my work is due north about 10 miles from my job. The way the crow flies, about 9 miles. It's an 18-minute drive because whether you go east or west, you have to avoid this place called San Velasco Forest. It's kind of a bike trail thing, and it's basically unpopulated or whatever, but they have it. It's a reserve, and you got to go around it one way or another. So it takes about 18 minutes to get there. And I was living in the suburbs, working in the country, so I'm going against most traffic. So, I mean, hell, I've worked there since 1994. So, and it's in an old town that I live in now. But it's just a suburb of the other town I live in. Been working there since 94. Been commuting from the previous house since 2003 when we moved there. My wife coincidentally works right next to me. It just total coincidence that we both have basically the exact same commute. However, I have a very inflexible job schedule. Hers is flexible. So we never commute together. So it's two cars, not being able to do the same route. This house happens to be in the same town that I work in. So instead of it being a 20-minute commute, it's about a 10-minute commute because you actually have to go through the little town and the traffic lights and stuff like that. But the driving is probably a third the distance. And the way this all came about is we were having some issues in a neighborhood where we were living where it was I had a particular neighbor next door that just didn't take care of his house. He had a fence that was falling down. I couldn't fix it for him. He just didn't care. He was just letting his house go to shit. Guy on the other side of his neighborhood, first they these people bought it and they planted a bunch of watermelon plants in their front yard. It literally looked like freaking Southeast Asia, which is fine if you want. I don't think you can even do that in your backyard. But if you have it hidden, who cares? But if you're running your neighborhood into the ground, that's not a good sign. Anyways, they ended up moving out, took all that stuff out, left the sprinkler heads, a couple feet came out of the grass, and run it as an Airbnb, which is apparently really cheap because it's full all the friggin' time. So there's like a zoo of cars. It was a 4-bedroom house. They put bunk beds. You could look at it on the Airbnb. That's how I know. I didn't go in there and snoop it around, but sleeps 24 or whatever. So these companies would come in like from out of town and canvas like the neighborhood. They would put all their salespeople in one, and there would just be a zoo of cars, and just parking on the grass and just basically being it's probably, I'd say, 15 to 20% of the people in the neighborhood just starting to misbehave. And the house was almost 30 years old. I'm fine with the house, but things have to start taking repairs and stuff like that. So we were generally kind of starting to become kind of unhappy with the whole situation, and there's nothing we could do about it. And one of my wife's coworkers had just built this house a couple of years ago and was looking to relocate and wanted a buyer. And with the price of housing right now, like, you'd be stupid to buy a house because you're overpaying, both in cost and in interest rate. Because it was one of those things where it's like with everybody moving to Florida, the prices of houses just skyrocketed since COVID. So, but when he was looking through his documents, he found out that he had a mortgage that was assumable. So what does that mean? It's a mortgage that's funded in part by the government. Don't ask me for the details, but basically we can take over his mortgage. And his mortgage is even less of a rate than ours was. And ours was a rate that'll never be again. So, so it was just kind of like, okay, well, we got to sell our house. We can come to the table with enough capital. And that's what we did. And that's how we ended up here. So we went from a 25, 30-year-old house to one that's 2 years old. So it still hasn't hit me that we live here. So this is a very country town, but it's a town that I've always worked in, and I'm still 15 minutes from the other town that has 150,000 people in it that I've lived my whole life. So I don't know, it's almost like I added another town to do stuff in instead of like losing one. I don't know if that makes any sense, but there's a modern supermarket around the corner. It's not like, we're buying stuff on the side of the road or from some place that looks very backwards. So, we're pretty happy. The only bum deal about the whole thing is that my wife and I can't commute. We have to take 2 cars, but it's not that big a deal. And you come home for lunch now if you want to. But that's basically the gist of what happened. It's just kind of just fell on our lap. Because if had that not happened, you just have to suck it out, and just deal with it, because this is not I ended up selling my house for a lot more than I paid for it. But then I had to put a lot more money into this house than I did in my other one. So it's kind of like, that's just kind of what the new normal is. But the people that bought my house brought a lot of money to the table for their part of it, and they moved from California. So whatever we were selling our house for was cheap compared to the prices that things go for out there, which is just crazy. So that's kind of the short end of how we ended up here. We weren't necessarily looking to move. And we had 4 bedrooms before. This is 3. And this house seems significantly bigger. I mean, it seems 3 times bigger than the other house. And one of the reasons is we have 12-foot ceilings, or however tall these ceilings are. They're insane. We have just the normal 8-foot ceiling things in the other house. And here you feel like an ant. You move into the big room, you're like, holy Colosseum. Our garage is 16 foot tall on the inside. It's just crazy, so, but it was an opportunity to just kind of become more minimalistic. And we don't have that much stuff, but we got rid of a lot of things that we didn't even know we had that we just been carrying around for 20 some odd years. So, yeah, just like I got rid of half of my brushes. But it's, we don't like clutter. And, your mind is at ease when you put your keys in where everything has a place so you can find it again. So the only catch right now is we got to we've assumed possession of this house, but we don't have the mortgage on it yet because it's through the government. They move at the speed of the lowest common denominator, and we just got a notice from them that the bank is working on it. So hopefully, as long as we can close in the next 30 days, we'll be okay. But everything's shaping up to be all right. But that's the only reason that we moved. It was like, we got to jump on this. I mean, this is never going to happen again. Everything is right on it. So now my mom, who lived 7 houses down from us, we were already living there, and she decided to buy a house in the neighborhood, which she was already living in the same town, but her and my dad passed away in the meantime. And she's not thrilled that we're in another town. Well, we're 15 minutes away. It's not that big of a deal, but she's older, and she's the only one that really didn't like that. But it was like, it's just laid in our lap. That's the reason we did it on it. It's like, okay, well, it's, everything it makes sense. We're never going to get this opportunity again. So the only way it could have worked out, I say, any better is if we would have sold our house and then there was a huge housing crash, and then this would have been cheaper to buy. But honestly, our payments aren't going to increase. We pay a lot less utilities up here. It's almost like breaking even. It's like it's just stupid not to have done it. And yeah, the only bum thing about this room is actually smaller than my other room, but it only has one entryway. It's better in every way other than I don't have a ceiling fan, which is okay. It's not that warm in here. I'll probably get a fan and put it over there just to circulate some air. And that I got to be on this rubber mat thing. But I got 2 desks. The lighting in here is, this is the lighting of the room. I got 4 LEDs in the roof. It's just amazing. LEDs everywhere, so you keep down on heat and cost, and I just don't really have any complaints. I like this house so much. I want to go, even when it's time to go to work, I want to go to work even less than I did at the other house. Oh man. But it was an opportunity to just kind of redress the balance of stuff. More is not better, and it's really a pain when you go somewhere and you can't find your things where you left them because there's so much clutter. And although our old house was not bad at that, I encourage everybody to minimalize, and everything has to have a place. And my daughter's experiencing the same thing. She's got 4 roommates in her house, and say, Daddy, these girls don't pick up after themselves. They don't do this, and they don't do the other thing. I said, yeah, it's just your life in chaos. It's just how I'm always talking about how I want my hobby area clear. Yeah, because I get distracted, and I spend 5 minutes looking for something that should be just like, oh, there it is. So it's not about me being a neat freak. It's about, having clarity of mind. But I painted yesterday for the first time in 2 months, and man, it felt great. I really needed that. I needed some therapy for sure. Okay, so it looks like the numbers that they have here is on the front side of this. I'm just trying to negotiate how we're going to do that. Let me switch to this other screen so maybe I'll have a chance to. So that's kind of the short end of how we ended up here. It wasn't that we needed more house. It wasn't necessarily that we needed a different house. It was that there were situations that we just couldn't solve. There's nothing you could do other than, call somebody and have the guy haul away, the neighbor. He's not well, and he'd do stuff like, I mean, he wasn't well, like, he was like dangerous or something like that, but he like cut all his hedges down, and the hedges have been there for 20 years. I don't care that he cut his hedges down. I'm not a tree hugger. I'm fine with trees. They don't have to be on top of your house. Like, we have a nice group of trees way back behind the house. I like them there, but he had trees like he had the hedges right on his thing, and didn't replace them with anything, and didn't power wash. So the bottom half of his house is all green, and it's like right next to mine. I'm like, okay, I mean, and he took all his windows and put aluminum foil, covered all his windows with aluminum foil, like he was waiting for, like an atomic test or something like that. I don't know. I mean, the guy's just not, he's not all there, and it's fine if you want to be, if you want to have strange beliefs, or if you want to be, do your own thing, but don't bring the whole neighborhood down. I mean, there's like a sense of, you're part of the community. You need to act like you're part of the team. And that just wasn't happening. So, but again, we wouldn't have been able to do it if this situation hadn't presented itself. Because who in the hell would buy a house now? I mean, the interest rates are higher than I've ever seen in my entire life. So, and it's going to look weird with nothing over here. I may actually do some artistic. What is it that I call it? An executive decision, and like put a little red star or something like on there. I feel like the little red star really makes things look a lot better. Yeah, this brush is pretty stellar. But you can't rent these days. You can't rent in the United States these days, because they could just raise your rent. At whim. The last 3 years have changed that. You got to have a mortgage that you can count on it being. This is how much it's going to be, and they can't raise it on you. I mean, they already raise other like taxes and stuff on you, but having that core mortgage fluctuate up and down, or your rent fluctuate. Well, it would never fluctuate down. Let's get down to, nobody says, "Hey, congratulations, your rent just went down for next month." Nobody says that. Let's see if we can. Let me put my glasses on so you can see what I'm doing here. That's what we have there. That's what we have on the back. So we're going to brighten these up with putting another coat of paint on there. But when you're doing stuff like this, you don't want to do it all the way to the top. You want to just kind of pace yourself, make sure everything is where it needs to be, and then go in and then maybe put some more paint on to brighten it. But to trying to do it all in one go is just a recipe for not working out right. Yeah, there we go. Okay, this brush is. They need to make an award and name it after this brush. I didn't say that right. This brush needs an award named after itself. Something like that. Okay, and let's just do the same thing on the other side. Start with a 0. Having that 0 in the middle just seems to be, and I do have to put a little A over here. We'll add that in a little bit. Go ahead and put that A on there now. Now I don't know what that means. This might actually be the platoon commander's vehicle or something like that. But it seems like if you're doing this kind of detail painting, it works a lot better not putting it on the wet palette, because a wet palette is, in its way, keeping the paint moist, diluting its consistency. And if you're diluting it also with a flow aid, you're trying to control two different variables. Here we just kind of minimize what those things are, and it stays workable for enough of a time that is reasonable. So I just use a piece of plastic, whatever. It just happens to be black so I can see. So it stands out a little bit more what I'm working on. Some people would say, "Oh, I'm just going to use a paint pen for this," and I just feel like the paintbrush is a lot. You have a lot more control, because the paint pen, you're stuck with the thickness of whatever the pen is. I mean, that's it. Like if you're using a 0.5, it's going to be 0.5 thick. You can't mess with it. With a paintbrush, you can thin it. You can make it, the line thinner. It's just a lot more flexibility with it. And you're just applying the paint over the surface. You're not, I mean, with a paint pen, you're literally pressing down on it. And I've had a paint pen and used it and actually scraped up some of the paint that's underneath where I was trying to put the paint on it. So I didn't like that. Okay. This one's about good enough. And, unfortunately, it's still going to be kind of plain looking. Now we're going to do some other marking over here, whether we do a star or some other symbol. I'll take a look at it again, but we're going to get the other one. The other one's, I think, 306 is what we're going to do. We say 307, something like that. One of those two. Let me minimize this. The 306, and there's a 307. We're going to do the 306 on this one. Oh, it looks like the arrow faces towards the front of the vehicle no matter what. Okay, so I may have to change the direction of that arrow on this side. Yep. No problem. We'll have to change the direction of that arrow. No big deal. What did I say? 300, 306? Yeah. I mean, I could make up my own number, but just be consistent and do the back. Now, this is interesting because there's like a, these are SHQ and some of these details are lost in the casting, but there's a little, like a grab handle here, but there's not actually a space between it. It's molded directly on the turret. So we're going to have to paint over that and then avoid it. You can see that you have to kind of have to paint around that. And it's going to be some touch up on that, but nothing big. It's even easier if you use paint that's a little watered down. I'm going to go ahead and put all the numbers in where they need to go. And then we'll come back and refresh them. And these numbers that are thin like this, the paint flows so much easier, so it's not like catching on the imperfections that you'd only see with like a microscope. So it keeps your numbering a lot more fluid. But it's really pretty easy once you get a hang of it. I don't know why so many people are scared of it. And if the number doesn't come out rough, to your liking, repaint it. Most of these were probably painted by a devout alcoholic. So, hand painted by a devout alcoholic. So this one's to that side, but then this one will be to the front. Oh, I smeared a little bit. No big whoop. Everything's a piece of cake compared to trying to get the camera in the right position. So there's a lot of options to actually paint, or inspiration to paint some of these late war Soviet vehicles. However, a lot of the times, it just seems like the markings just, there's not enough of them there. There's not enough different stuff on there. It almost still looks barren, even with the markings on it. And I've got to, I got to dodge, doing a Czech Legion or a Polish Legion. I'm not doing any liberation vehicles for the Soviets. In other words, we'll set up a Polish unit to help them liberate Poland. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Just doesn't interest me. Okay, this one needs to be towards the front. We'll have our quirks about what we do and don't like to paint. I know several people that won't do SS units. I've never painted an SS unit. I'm not necessarily against it. I'm also not necessarily interested in it. You don't have time to do everything, so you might as well put some restrictions on what you are and aren't going to do, so that makes you accomplish your goals a little easier. Take some things off the table at least. Okay, this one needs the one that I've got to fix. All right, so let's go grab, I'm not sure which Russian green it is. But they're not that different from each other. So we're going to take this Russian green, put some of it here, don't need very much, and the black that we had out from yesterday. And I'm going to use the same thin brush. Actually, all I gotta do how'd it get so watery? All I gotta do is just turn this into a line and then put the tail of the feather on one side of it and the arrowhead on the other side. I don't have to erase the whole damn line. That's what the problem is. There we go. This is the stuff that I dislike doing the least. Maybe it's because I'm nearsighted and I can appreciate all the stuff that goes into it, but I don't mind it one bit. How's the feed working, folks? Is it glitchy? Is it seem to be pretty smooth? I wonder why they put a white star on these things. Well, I won't be doing that. It just doesn't seem appropriate. If I'm not putting a white star on the top of my British vehicles, I'm certainly not doing it on the Soviet vehicles. And that's one of my pet peeves. I won't do Commonwealth vehicles with a white star on them. It just seems like, dude, they get their own symbol. And it's funny because I was just doing a little bit of an ancillary research. I came across Shermans in Italy apparently had the roundel on the thing, but when they were in Northwest Europe, they went with the old white star for the Yanks from the Yanks. It's just like, man, they deserve to have their own symbol, not have to piggyback on somebody else's, you know? Okay, that one's done. I guess I'll run the camera like this until I can come up with something better. It seems to be, I guess, reasonable to some degree. Could just run the big one and just run it all in one piece, but you're not going to be able to see that. Let's see, where's the camera? All right, so let's set these off to the side. Let's move this off to the side. And do some dry brushing on these. So first color up. Is a U.S. field drab. And I don't paint my road wheels in dark gray because they're going to get dry brushed over them. So if you paint them in dark gray, by the time you're done dry brushing over them, they end up turning into light gray. So I just leave them black And by the time you do this dry brushing over it, it'll all sort itself out. That's just my choice, you know. You do you. Well, a lot of people are like, you got to do it this way, you're doing it wrong. Yeah, you need to find a different hobby, man. Let people do whatever the hell they want. Some people want vehicles that are minimum of weathering. Some people want them all sloppy and stuff. You know, I don't really like using any kind of washes that are going to get a light color left in a crevice, because I just feel like you're not going to be able to see that it makes all the details kind of get lost when you're looking at it off on the table. Some people like that. I think it looks good on a plastic model. I just think that these are gaming pieces, so it's kind of not really the look I'm going for. I have to come back and paint that tree trunk. Be careful I don't over weather it like I did these. I looked at my other T-34s yesterday. I'm like, oh man, these guys are a lot dustier looking than the other ones I have. I said, well, that's fine. They're in the Ukraine stirring up shit, you know, stirring up dust in the Ukraine. And don't judge things until you're done with them, because it'll be like, oh, they actually look good after all. You know, when you do, something happens when you put like the sealing level on it. It just kind of evens all the colors out, and things always seem to look better. The magic of having it all kind of get tied together. But I can tell some of these molds have been through a lot, because sometimes you got some pit marks and stuff like that. But I picked up all these guys just because I got an offer I couldn't refuse on these. They were from an estate sale that I got at a convention a couple of years ago, and you never see stuff in 1/72 or 76 or 20 millimeter selling at any convention anymore. Seems like Marcus and I are the only ones in the U.S. that do this scale. I grew up on it. I love this scale. I'm not a 28 millimeter fanboy, and 15 millimeter World War II just didn't exist when I was doing World War II stuff. It just wasn't a thing yet. I don't know that I would have embraced it, but it wasn't there to embrace. It wasn't even an option. So. So much variety. Yep, there is. Well, a lot of the other scales are playing catch up right now. There's a couple of other things that are I don't know if jealous is the right word, but there's a company called Rubicon Models, I believe is who they are. And they'll make like a set, I don't know how accurate they are, they'll make a set for like a Panzer III, right? And in that set, it has a shit ton of different decals. It has all kinds of variants to make. So they buy like one box and they can make, I think, everything from like a J all the way into an N just from all of it. And they do the same thing with the KVs and different vehicles. And I wish that more companies would do that with the 1/72nd scale stuff, but that's okay. You can get pretty much anything in this scale, and my only gripe in this scale is it's predominantly a UK scale, and so a lot of the stuff that like, oh, I want this, oh crap, it's got to come from the UK, which I have no problem doing business with the UK. It's an increased cost, and delivery time issues. It's mainly increased costs, not really delivery time. My experience with sellers in the UK is they actually tend to ship quicker than people in the US. Seems like it would be better to live in the UK. No, I'm not living there anytime soon. Sorry, folks. I'm fine with people from the UK moving here. There's more space to move around here. Hell, I can't even go to Europe. Every time I try to go to Europe, our plans get canceled. So, hey, I'd rather never go to Europe and still be able to interact with you guys through medium like this. So, I'm gonna cover this, but not get crazy with it, as we still have the lighter shade to do also. And actually, the shipping from the UK is not that bad. It's everywhere else in Europe. There's a guy in Australia that sells a bunch of this stuff, and he had some stuff that I was interested in, but cost prohibitive. If I needed something badly, sure, but that's a hell of a justification I gotta make to myself. I could say the wife, but I don't have to justify anything for her. I don't do crazy shit. I'm like, I don't like to buy stuff that just doesn't make financial sense. And it doesn't feel good. You have trouble sleeping at night and stuff like that. So I'm not one of those people that goes to a game convention and spends more than they should. I got pretty good self-control. I also, I have a ton of stuff to work on. That's stuff that I want to work on. It's not like, oh, I guess I'll build this stuff, but it's not really what I want to do. No, I like all the stuff that I have. I don't mind getting more, but let's get through some of this. Let's get through some of this pile. Let's see what we're looking at. And of course, both of these will have tank commanders. It's a good looking, the look of a T-34-85, it's a good looking vehicle. Yeah, Simon Soldiers, that's what I was talking about. Nice guy, and I don't think he's gouging me. It just costs that much to get stuff over, The only good thing is the Australian dollar is just really weak against the US, which is, benefits us, but still I don't need anything that badly, fortunately. So I don't know of anybody out there when I say, shipping costs, like, oh, somebody's just marking things up. It costs them. You know, vendors don't make money on shipping. That's just the intermediaries. And somebody once told me that it was the shipping was so expensive because the U.S. Post Office did something, and everybody responded and go, "Hey, I am not a fan of the U.S. Postal Service. I am not a fan of them, and I wouldn't put it past them." And the other thing I noticed is by the time these vehicles came out in mid '44, there's a few of these with slogans, but by and large, the Soviets know they're going to win the war, so they don't need to have all these. They don't need They don't need as much inspiration as they did in '41 and '42 when things were shaky, so or questionable. They're going to beat the crap out of the Germans. It's just a matter of when. All right, let's get rid of this and go back to agua, and we'll do the Iraqi sand coat. I've been wanting to get one of those things. Was it Badger 3D paint or printing or something like that? But I don't really need anything. I mean, I do want to get some A13 Cruiser Mark IVs that they used in the desert, but that's going to entail getting into another theater. I got plenty of stuff to work on. Sometimes it's good to daydream, put things in your box to okay, let me buy this, and it'll be this much, and then just don't buy them. So you still get the thrill of buying, you just never receive anything. Enjoy the stuff you have, not what you don't have. If you don't have things to do, that's one thing, but we all got enough of a backlog. We can always find something that we can work on. I'm going to go a little lighter with this since the Soviets were already out of the Ukraine by the time these came in. It's less dusty. It could be dusty anywhere. I'm talking about those huge. Have you ever looked at German tanks doing Operation Barbarossa in July in the Ukraine? It's just they're almost this color. they're totally dustified. And this, of course, matches the colors that are on the base, so it all ties in together. That'd be kind of silly to dry brush one color and then the base doesn't have any of those colors in it. Yeah, that's good. And I don't worry if I inadvertently somehow scuff some of this up by actually grabbing it with my fingers, because it's not enough to. It's an imperfect science. There's not enough of it that's going to happen on for it really to be a factor. I make purchase wish lists all the time. It's fun. It's fun, and then you can have your superpower can be like you can name off all the suppliers of people that make like a Valentine tank or something like that in 1/76 scale. That's what I used to do before the internet. I'd travel everywhere with my DBA book, and I like inadvertently memorized like all the DBA army lists and the composition and stuff, just because it was pre-internet, and I just always would travel it with me. It was just some fun reading material. All right, same thing here. Let's make some of these surface details pop up. These two will have some tank commanders that will permanently be crew exposed. Of course, the game actually uses a little chit you put beside it. So, your model can actually have a guy popping his head out, but the actual vehicle does not. It is a playing piece that may or may not represent the vehicle status in its entirety. Now, let me put my glasses so I can see. Yeah, I'm not putting any more weathering than that. That's about right. Lighting's not the best. You just have to take my word for it. I'll do the same thing with this other vehicle. Make sure I did the tracks on the front and back. Yep. And looks like I didn't do them here. Again, that's one of those things, if you forget and you go and seal this thing, oh man, I didn't weather tracks, just forget to weather them afterwards. It's not likely that that's a place that, not all places are going to, the paint is going to rub off the same. Some places just don't get as much wear and tear when you're picking up the model. And I've got about 8 or so more T-34-85, so I'm definitely going to do some with some of the Berlin stripes. Maybe I'll do them in pairs, because these are obviously from the same unit. I normally don't do that. I'd rather show them as a variety of different stuff. Because most of the time, if you're going to use them in battle, you're only going to use one of them. It's unlikely you certainly not use friggin' 5. That's pretty extreme. But I've come to the conclusion that I like white metal figures, but I like plastic vehicles because it is so much easier to work with plastic than it is with white metal. And honestly, most plastic things are better cast than the white metal vehicles. White metal things tend to have like mold issues and things like that, where they don't quite fit together, or especially like the halves of the suspension that go on there. They just, you have to epoxy the living crap out of them, and even then they don't fit great sometimes, frequently. Doesn't look bad. I'll be right back in a jiff, folks. You had a little bit of a Coke left over from last night. All right, so we've got this rudimentary tree trunk that we need to paint up. Do these guys have any of those as well? I want to say at least one of them probably does. Although I may not have put any on this one. I did not. This one has a cardboard box. This has a box, which is actually from the Eschi kit. But these actually don't have, what do you call them? Markings on it yet. This one does. Let me pull one of my finished T34s that I'm happy with and see if the markings aren't a little brighter. I can always go over them after they're dry brushed so they stand out a little bit more. Let's get one of these, this JSU. Here it's kind of a contemporary of the T3485. And yeah, the markings are a little brighter, so I'm probably going to go over with white and have those pop a little bit while I'm done. I like how this guy turned out. And we have a headlight to paint on there too. Okay. Let's get that tree trunk going. I believe I used the SS Camel Black. I remember I used a pretty dark bark color. I'm not going to fire up the wet palette just for this. This will be able to do fine. I'm actually going to throw it on here as well. The wet palette just takes up a lot of space, so it's not, if it's not necessary, I won't use it. And that's the small wet palette. So let's use this brush. And we still have some black left over here. Yeah. Oh, so I was talking about yesterday. I said I was watching a movie called On the Road to Berlin or something like that. It's a Soviet movie. Well, I guess it could be a Soviet movie. It's a Russian movie that is that's on Amazon right now, and it has a mock-up of a KV-2 that they used. Looks like with like a T-72 hull. They did a pretty good job with a mock-up of it. I said there's some other vehicle, and I can't remember what it was, and it was a Matilda. They had a Matilda. They didn't show it running. It was just kind of in the background. So it had several T-34s. A KV-2 mock-up. And a Matilda. And no, none of them had any cool markings or anything. That would just be too much to ask. Well, I'd rather have them have a minimalist of markings than have a lot of markings that are just flat wrong. Yeah, let's add a little bit of white to this. I think that's what I done. That's what I done? I think that's what I done. Should work a little bit better. See if I can discern what color I use for the log, because honestly I liked how it turned out quite a bit. So let me grab one of these T-34s that hopefully has a log on it. There's one. Yeah, we definitely use this color. There's no doubt about it. We'll paint the ends. There's a little other branch. It looks like it was taken out. Does not have a log? No. Yeah, they were more common early in the war for. So I always thought that the logs were mainly to like cross things. And that might have been the case, but after doing Shermans, I think they were using the logs for extra armor protection. Which, yeah, it'd make a difference. You know? Never occurred to me that they would do that. I thought it was like trench crossing or something like that. Never know when you're going to need one of these, so they just pick one up. Of course, I'm not going to go in there and like put little tie downs where it's tied to it. I don't have time for that. Okay, so this guy's, and this one doesn't have the headlight. This one's the headlight's gone. So there is a headlight on this one, so let's paint the headlight on that. Let's go a little darker than that overall. The temperature's not too bad in here for not having a fan, but I don't think it'd take much. Just something, even if it's on the ground, put it way over there just to get the flow going. But this house is definitely cooler than the other one. And there always seems to be a breeze outside. Now my airbrush area, it's nowhere. I mean, I can't even get to it right now. But the people before here, they built like a workbench. So there's literally like a wooden thing that, we're not gonna have paint and shit all over it. I actually did quite a bit of airbrushing. Really didn't make much of a mess. So I suspect that trend will continue. But I'll have a dedicated area to airbrush out there. But most of the magic's gonna happen in here. But I could tell a big difference when I spent 3 hours painting. Okay, man. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for holding out for me, folks. Yeah, I had quite a few visitors yesterday, and they were all regulars. So I'm glad you guys are still around. I needed to get back to doing this because I was kind of in a bad mood all the time. You know. Okay. This one we still got to do the rusty things on the rusty mufflers. It's two headlights over here, one on each of these. Let's go ahead and do those as well. I'll have to build a machine gun for that. No big deal. So this one's completely done. Oh no, it's not. All right, we'll just put it here. Now we can say that one's completely done. This one needs markings on it, and this one needs to paint the little box. I'm definitely going to want to give that a little bit of that little detail. And then this one's complete, and then this one's complete. Well, other than the tank commander. That'll go in afterwards. Oh, we still need to do the rusty muffler things. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just do that now. Knock them all out. Let me get my orange color. I believe it's something like this. That's the one. Light brown. Nah, freaking orange. I put them here so that reminds me to put them away. And some black. Don't need to repaint the ones that are done. All right, let's put more orange in it. It's really not that noticeable, but you know, any of these things that get super, super hot, the paint's gonna flick off, and one doesn't have any paint to protect it. It's just gonna oxidize like crazy. Especially those big old mufflers that the Germans had on the Panzer IIIs and IVs on the back, like rust buckets. Yeah, that should suffice just fine. So this one is, oh no, it's not complete. We got a sock or something there. All right. Well, that's what we're here for, to finish stuff. Close but no cigar. Looking for a Russian uniform. Doesn't have to be that color, but something has a little bit of a contrast. This US olive drab should be fine. This is another little thing from, I believe it was the Eschi model. And let's grab Nuln Oil, because we're going to need Nuln Oil down here. Oh, that's always a little bit too much. Shit happens. Actually, too wet right now. Yeah, box. We're going to do that a box in a lighter color. Yeah, let's move over to the box while that dries up a little bit. I'd like to finish one vehicle instead of hopping around, but I mean, you got to keep the momentum going. You can't just sit around and say, "Well, I'll just wait for this to be done," and and not do anything. This is being called English uniform. And we'll put all these paints away when we're done, so we can have order here. just like I said, we should be back on the regular schedule of being on weekend mornings, assuming I'm not traveling. I may be traveling a couple of weeks, and of course over New Year's we're not going to be in town, so I think I'm going to start bringing it up from there. I am going to switch to a thinner brush. Let's start lightening that color up a little bit. This brush is almost worthless. For whatever reason, it's not. I don't want it. This one's stellar for the numbering. We don't want to touch that one for anything. Let's yeah, that's a pretty good shape. It's this with this, and then a little bit of this. There we go. A little bit more white, and that's probably as high as we'll go. There we go. Of course, I probably need to work on getting the workbench cleared at this point, because I'm going to have to seal these guys with the airbrush, so. I think I need to go up one level more. this is. Left this color over here. I believe that's where it was. I'm going to dry brush over this lightly so it'll all look like it's part of the same vehicle. So at this point, what we need to do is we're going to need to put markings on these two T-34s and build a machine gun for the one that didn't come with one. Like when I bought these, they were just like in a big pile. It was like almost like a garbage bin of stuff, and I had to sort everything where all the pieces are for. These guys can leave the stage. And of course, all these ones that are going to have an open hatch will have a little tank commander in them. Let me check on one thing. I'll be right back. Go for it, painting. Hello. Well, we're going to cut this session out. I've been on here 2.5 hours or so, so it took a little bit of time to get things going, but I think this camera angle's probably the best we can do at this moment. Oh, I didn't do the Nuln Oil. Yeah, we'll pick that up next time. And I don't think I'll be back on today, but who knows. But thanks for stopping by, folks. And like I said, we should be back on a regular schedule of mornings on the weekend, and we can get continue the ball rolling as we have been. So